So for sound check, let's talk about that. If possible, after you set up at your campus, if you do setups or when you first arrive, it's most desirable, if you can, to do a line check. A line check is this. You and one other person, could be another technician or a band member if possible, just tapping on every microphone to make sure everything is working, it's patched right. We're not worried about how does it sound, anything like that, building a mix, nothing. It's just making sure everything is plugged in and working. Hey, check, you got that? Okay, cool. Hey, got that? Yep, cool. And just going through every source. That's a line check, making sure everything is plugged in and working. A sound check is for the front of house engineer. That's our time for us to hear every source, get it sounding the way it needs to sound for the day, get all the levels set properly, get our gain structure set, which is super important. We're going to talk a lot about that coming up. Get our gain structure set, and then get the mix happening, and do that. Okay, so sound check is for the front of house engineer. We will get to ear changes and rehearsal time for the band. Sound check is for the front of house audio engineer, okay? In sound check, we listen to all sources, correct the gain, adjust the channel processing, which is the EQs and dynamics, which we'll talk about in a little bit. That's what we do that. We want to listen to all sources, do those steps, have the band play a song, and then we come back and do ear changes for the band to make sure they can hear what they hear. So let's talk about that a little bit more. I'm going to go over here behind the band, behind the console, move this out of the way. Do we have the overhead shot? We don't. It's okay. So on your board, ta-da, ask and you shall receive. Thank you, Scott. On your board, all your boards should be set up roughly the same, if not very much the same, okay? And so all the boards are laid out the same in that the first bank here we have is the drums. So I select this button here, and I see all my drum inputs, which you can see the names of here across the bottom. So we have 2 mics on the kick drum, 2 mics on the snare drum, some reverb, which we'll talk about in a moment, the hi-hats, 2 toms, another reverb, the overheads, and a ride. That's the most advanced setup we have, which our permanent locations use. Portable campuses, you don't do a ride mic. That's it. That's the only difference. Everything else is the same. So that bank is all drums. The next bank down gives us our bass, guitars, keys, and tracks. So we have 2 lines for bass. We have an electric guitar 1, electric guitar 2, 2 acoustic guitars, or the capability of running those, 2 stereo keys lines. So if you notice here on these input channels, those are all monos. You see the 1 meter, and here you see the keys is a stereo meter, stereo input, meaning there's 2 inputs, the left and the right. Okay, so we see all of our keys inputs, and then our tracks, perk tracks, guitar tracks, keys tracks, and then a band reverb, okay? The next bank down is our vocalist and their reverbs, which we see here. LAO is living as one, which is our point-to-point streaming service, and then our 6 campus vocalists, or up to 6 we might have, as well as the reverbs. And then this last bank is all of our living as one altogether. So when we're doing a sound check, the first thing we're going to do is set our gain up at the top, and we're going to talk more about that in Digico. I don't want to get into that right now. We'll talk about that in our next session. So we're going to set our gains, adjust our levels and things, push all the faders up, and remember, the sound check is for us to build our mix. So one by one, we're going to follow this process. Start with the kick drum, adjust the gain, push the faders up, listen to it, assess it. Yep, sounds good, we're good to go. Okay, we're gonna go on to the next thing, go to the snare. Same thing, adjust the gain as needed, push it up, listen to it, assess and adjust as needed, and so on and so forth. Go through the entire drum kit, okay? We will then have the drummer play. Say, go ahead and play that whole kit for me. He gets up there and gives me his best solo, wailing out, cool. I take that time and I make my mix pretty much how I want it, get it pretty happy. I then stop him and ask, okay, what do you need in your ears? So over here, this section we see is our auxiliary outputs. An auxiliary output is, instead of being the main output, our regular faders, where we push the fader up and it comes out of the speaker system, that's our main mix. An auxiliary mix is an offshoot of that, where I'm able to control all the inputs at individual levels going to a different source. So you see here all these names. These are all of our players of our worship team on stage. Our drummer, our bassist, our guitarist, keys. We have one spare, and then our vocalist. Okay? So as I select each mix, you see the faders move, and I'm able to adjust what they're hearing as needed based on what they ask for. Okay? So when we do our sound check, we will start off with the drums. We get ourselves happy as in get what we need. We then adjust the entire drum kit mix for the drummer only. Not everybody else. We don't need to do we don't do the kick drum and have everybody else go up or down, in every individual source. That just ends up taking a lot longer than we want it to take. So we go through the entire drum kit just for front of house, and then have the drummer play and change just what the drummer needs, just for his ears. We then go on to the bass guitar, next in line. Same process, have him play, correct the gain, listen to it, assess it, make any adjustments needed, and then make sure that he can hear himself correctly. Not everybody else, just Mr. Bassman, can you hear yourself? Okay, good. We repeat that process for electric 1, electric 2, the acoustic, and the keys as needed. Only checking to make sure that they can hear themselves, not everybody. The goal here is we want to get the band playing all together as a cohesive unit as quickly as possible. Before we make any changes, we want them to hear all of them together as one unit before we make any adjustments. That's going to limit how much we're having to change, because it's early in the morning, ears haven't woken up yet, they're not fully functioning, things still feel really loud. They may go, oh man, that's way too loud. Bring that way down. And then they play and they go, oh, I can't hear the bass at all. Can you bring that bass way back up? And we just end up doing double work a lot of the time. So our goal here, our heart here is, unless something is hurting them or they have none of it, they can't hear it at all, we want to say, hey, can you let's hang on, let's try that. Let's get you to play all together and see how it feels in the context of everything else, okay? So that's the goal here. So unless something is unless they rip their ears out and go, oh my gosh, that's way too loud, then okay, let me fix that for you. Other than that, I don't do, can I get a little bit down, a little bit? I'm just like, hang on, let's just try it out first and see how it goes. Because chances are it's going to be right when they hear everything in context together. Okay, so we've gone through now all of our drums, bass, guitars, and keys, and got all of our live players all happy, and we made noise, we've heard there, and we all know they can hear themselves, and we're going to trust that last week's file that we're now working on is going to be pretty close to good for them. We'll make minor tweaks. Okay, so we're now to checking tracks. The way I do this is I go through and mute all of the tracks. Let me find them. Don't know where they are. I made this file. I can't. There it is. So here, this is for our permanent campus. It's a little more split out than what the portables have. Portables have a mono-click file. A click is a metronome. Keeps the whole band in time. Okay, that's what we call click. You see cues right here. Cues are a voice that also come from the Ableton rig. Ableton is a software computer program that runs on a computer. All of our drummers fire those tracks. They hit spacebar and it starts to click. It starts any backing tracks that we play through the house. So we call that just Ableton in general. Or tracks. Okay, so the cues are, in addition to the click that's happening, keeping them all in time, it also tells them verse, 2, 3, 4. So the singers know right where to go. They don't have to focus on, what did I just sing? Where am I singing next? Where do I go? We have the words right in front of them. We have the ears telling them right where to go. And they can focus on worshiping and leading our congregations, not focus on technical details and what am I doing? Where did I just sing? What's going on? They're able to engage more and lead that way. So the cues are, actually in the worship team world, they call them guides. They kind of go back and forth. Cues and guides. You may hear that term. It's the same thing. It's saying verse 2, 3, 4, chorus 2, 3, 4, bridge 2, 3, 4, and that. So at portables, you have one channel that's click and cues together. You have one mono percussion track by itself that's mono, and then you have one stereo channel that has a blend of guitars and keys together, okay? Our worship resourcing team is providing those files to our campuses. They should be, they are mixing all that, setting all those levels. And so what we're doing when we come to check is I mute all this at the start just to make sure that, because people have in-ears in, if there's anything wrong electronically and it's super loud, I don't want to hurt their ears, damage our equipment, anything like that. So I just mute it to start off to be safe with. Have the drummer start it, and I check the level, okay? I set the click level first because it's the most consistent. And I set that to where the signal is hitting right at 0 on this meter here. You see right there is a 0 mark. You see on this signal, on this source here, that's a little bit low. I could gain that up right to where it's hitting at 0. That's what we're going for on all input channels. We want the signals to be hitting at 0. Okay, so I'm adjusting the click level to where it's hitting 0. It's the most consistent thing. I then match the gain on all the other track channels. So whether you have 8 channels like you see here, or you just have 3 channels or 4 channels, I match the numbers. And the reason for that is because, let's say on they fire song 1, and the percussion track is just a little tiny shaker and some cymbal swells. Okay, then they fire song 2, and it's got big drums. Okay, if we adjust our gain up to make that shaker hit 0, and then the big drums come in, it's gonna clip, it's gonna be way loud, it's gonna be distorting, not good. And so we match all the levels to the click. So even if the signal is showing lower here, even on song 1, even though song 1s are typically more high energy, and it might be reversed, song 1 would be loud and 2 would be quiet. Even though the signal may be right here and lower, if the levels match, or if the actual gain matches, that's what we're wanting, okay? So we're gonna trust that our worship resourcing team has pre-mixed those levels within Ableton as they deem fit or as the song needs, and we're just gonna match our levels and not chase them around up and down. Does that make sense? Okay, so first thing I do is set the click and separate cues if you have them, and match them, and then I just warn the band, hey, click coming on, 3, 2, 1, and pop them on, okay? So now everyone has heard themselves, their instrument, and now they're hearing a click, and they have some sort of reference, so now I can say, is that okay for everybody for now? Again, is it hurting, or do you have none for some reason? No one should ever have no click. That'd be weird, but it might happen. So again, I'm just checking, is anything hurting, or is everyone okay? So typically, if I don't see any of that, then okay, I'm good. Tracks 3, 2, 1, I bring those on, and I mute those. And again, the same thing, if no one says, oh my gosh, oh, ouch, or anything like that, I say, everyone have tracks? Can you hear it? Yeah, I'm good. Okay, cool. So I now heard my entire band and tracks. I haven't gotten the vocals yet, but I've heard all my band. Depending on how your campus works, here, we start sound checks with the band at 5:30. The vocalists are in the back room doing warm-ups, so they're not on stage. So we're starting our band separately from our vocal start time. Okay, so now I would have the band run through a whole song. They play a whole song, and again, that's because I want them to hear themselves all together in context, and that gives me a time to go ahead and get my mix pretty well dialed in and ready to go. I'm about done after that first song, because I've already gone through a sound check and heard everything individually, and now I get to hear the whole band in context with one another. So I get that whole thing pretty well dialed in, ready to go. As soon as that first song ends, before the MD is a music director, it's typically our keyboardist. He has a microphone that can talk into all their ears. So before the MD gets in, goes, hey, band, let's make sure we blah, 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 and go start in the musical parts, I jump right in on my top hat microphone. I go, okay, let's get ear changes going. And then I select the drummer mix right away so that I'm ready. As soon as I say, drummer, what do you need? And he goes, I need blank. I'm already on it, ready to go. Got my faders pulled up, and I'm ready to make changes. As soon as he says it, I'm not here and go, okay, drummer, what do you need? And he goes, blah, 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 blah. And he starts firing off, and I have to go find this and go, what'd you just say? Start all over again. I've got the mix pulled up already. I'm ready to go. I read right down the line, okay? I come right down this line, drums, bass, right in order. I don't have to read from left to right who's on stage, wonder who wandered around, who left. I don't miss anybody. I don't forget anybody's names. I can just say, drummer, what do you need? Bass, what do you need? EG1, what do you need? Now, if I know their names, I for sure use their names. I'll go, okay, he's on drums. Christian, what do you need? He's on bass. What do you? But by going down this order, it keeps consistency for us. The order of these aux outputs matches the order of the inputs, if you hadn't noticed. Drums, bass, electrics, acoustic, keys, and then vocals. Right here, drums, bass, electrics. We don't typically have acoustic players who are not singing. Typically, our acoustic players are singing. So drums, bass, electrics, keys, and then vocalists. So it all lines up. It also matches the way your microphones plug in on stage. If you notice when you're plugging in, it's drums, bass, electrics, acoustic, keys, tracks, vocals. Same thing on the input structure and the output structure. Okay, that creates consistency for all of our teams. And so us doing the ear changes, asking who needs what in this order, not by going from left to right across stage, but going by this, keeps us consistent, make sure we don't forget anybody, and they know what to expect. They know, the drummer knows he's always first, bass player knows he's always second, and so on and so forth. I don't have the drummer running off to the bathroom really quick, like, no man, you're first, I need to get your ear changes right now, Okay, that makes sense. Grab some water here. So that is how we run sound check. We didn't talk about vocals. For vocals, all of our singers are all using wireless mics, okay? And with wireless mics, the process is a little different than what we do with our regular inputs. We're not gaining everything up until the signal is hitting 0. And the reason is this. With a wireless microphone, there's a signal that comes obviously from here to a receiver back there. There's gain, there's digital transmission that's involved with that, and there's outputting from that unit into the audio system. If we go and adjust the gain a lot on a microphone, it's going to really raise what's called the noise floor. You'll start hearing that hiss. So it's going to raise that raises the noise floor. That's just the digital junk that's between this and that, okay? That noise floor. And it's also going to make this microphone a lot more sensitive to bleed in the room, which we don't want. So really, just like your tuning, we were talking about your tuning, making your speakers sound right and getting them all aligned, all of your microphones have been optimized for you already. What that looks like is me coming up with it, or typically me coming to your campus and going, hey, 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 a lot, and getting all the levels kind of dialed in from here to there, from there to there, as in from your mic to your receiver, from your receiver into your console. Okay, and that's all kind of optimized. So we want to leave all that as is. Because if we do a sound check and try to chase gain, just like my example of the percussion track with a quiet shaker, and then the next song might be really loud. If we have Sister Susie at 6 a.m. say, hey, give me your best thing, she's like, amazing. It's not going to be like the full-on going after it like we will be in the first service, right? So we're not going to go chasing that gain. We're going to have all those gains kind of preset, and as long as everyone can hear themselves, then we're going to be good. Okay, so whether your vocalists start with your band first thing, or they come in later, at whichever point, you can just have each singer check their microphone, make sure they're hearing it. You don't have to adjust the gain. You can just focus on any EQ changes that are needed or compression, and move on from there. So each person can hear themselves. I typically just say, hey, singers, can you all hear yourself? And they go, yep, 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 I'm good. And each person does it down the line, and then they're ready to roll a song. So, and then after we do the ear changes, just like with the band, I just go right down the line to the vocalist as well. So on a given week, you come in, you start your console up, you load last week's session, and what I would like is for us to be changing the names of the vocal mic, of the singers' inputs, okay? Singers, in terms of our worship, the worship portion of our section, our singers are the most important part of what we have to do. They're the ones leading the congregation. They're singing the songs, leading those words out. So I don't want us to have to worry about, which one is she on again? Oh, it's that one. Oh, nope, she's over, there she is. Okay, and we just missed all that. Just go right here, touch, type in the name of each singer, confirm, and there you go. So now you put in each person's name for all your singers. If there's no one there, you can just leave it as Vox number whatever. So change their vocalist name, and then on the outputs, change those to the singers as well. I don't change all the band because, frankly, it's just too much to type, and it's pretty standard. It's pretty straightforward. I can see where the drummer is. I can see where the vocalist. I can see where the keys player is. I know the EG1 is always on stage right, and EG2 is always on stage left. Should be. So I know who those are. What I don't know is what mic did that person grab, what mic did that person grab. Now, it's on Planning Center as well. We have our list there, but it doesn't always work out. Sometimes there's last-minute changes or whatever. So I always change the names here of my singers just to make sure that I'm controlling the right mix, changing the right person, going forward like that. Does that make sense? Anybody have any questions about that process? Changing names, going through a sound check. Okay, great.